Hello everybody and welcome to another Brio Thomas & Friends discussion with me, SortaFan2K10. Today we're looking at a character that I'm kind of surprised that Brio even thought to make. We'll get to that later, but it is Butch the Breakdown Vehicle. And he's one of the more interesting characters to me in terms of his history more than anything else. But we will talk about that in just a moment, like I mentioned. He's one of the more unique Brio models, certainly, being not an engine and not a bus or anything like Bertie, but yeah, we'll talk about that in just a moment. So how about we take a look at his model really quick. So let's start off, of course, with the all-important face. Hopefully it focuses for us. Come on. So Butch's face on this Brio model is pretty good. I like it a lot. It's surprising how much I like it, considering that we never really got a close-up of Butch's face, to be honest, in the TV series. We never got a shot of Butch, kind of like this, because he never appeared much in the classic series, or almost at all. But, he never got like a speaking role or what have you, but again, I'll get to that in a moment. But it's a pretty good face, again, considering we never saw it up close. I like it a lot. It's got the stubble or what have you, just like Iron Bert, so that's pretty cool. He's got these lamps, which they look silver, but I think they're meant to be the same color as his body. It's just that the paint is worn away. Underneath it says BRK03, which I think is meant to be his number plate. And he's got a very small magnet, similar to what the small engines like Thomas, Percy, and Stepney, what have you, would have. Looking at the side of him, he looks pretty good. It's interesting though, I mentioned last week how rare it is for these models to have plastic involved. When we looked at Terrence, I mentioned how almost his entire chassis was made of plastic. Pretty much most of Butch is made of plastic, if I'm honest. The only wooden parts is his main body, his main engine compartment, and his cab are made of wood, and also I think, yeah, his chassis for the most part is made of wood, where the wheels and all that are connected are made of wood, but the rest is all plastic. All this up here, all down here, the wheel arch detail, all of that is plastic, and of course the towing arm is plastic, of course. But it's used to good effect. I mean, we've got the wheel arch detail going on here. I'm not sure what that black square is. I think it's supposed to be his fuel tank, but I could be completely wrong about that. I'll be honest, I didn't really do much research into the basis of Butch, which in fact I did once, and I think he's based on two different he's like a I can't think of the word, like a mismatch of a mashup, that's the word, of two different vehicles. There's a look at the back. There's his Brio sticker, which is in a convenient place, 1996 as per usual, but no rear magnet, which is a bit surprising, but also I guess kind of not surprising, because if Butch was ever going to pull anything or tow anything, he would just use his crane arm. I completely forgot to point this out earlier, but there's a look at the writing on his side. It just says Sodor, and then right there in very small writing it says Heavy Recovery Unit, just about, considering how worn away it is on my model. Also, there's a little bit of edge wear on mine, just around here. And that, to be honest, is Butch. There's the top. Well, it's not quite, actually. We've got to look at his crane arm. So there's his towing arm. It's functional in a degree. It doesn't swivel, which is unfortunate, but I'm not sure tow trucks' towing arms even swivel at all. But you'll notice it's got this string here, and if I just pull this bit out, it's got this little ball on the end of it, which keeps the string from falling. So it's got a magnet, and it just drops down like that. So it's a fair length of it. It's just over an inch long. So it reaches the ground. If I just put him on the tracks for a moment, it does reach the ground, and then what you do is you hook up anything to that. It will connect to the front of vehicles, which means unfortunately most Brio vehicles don't even have a magnet on the front. We've looked at Bertie and Terrence and they don't have them, but there are, I have done workarounds with hooking them up and what have you. But then, as you just saw, you literally just pull it up and it hooks into like this little slot right there, and that's what keeps it from falling down, which is interesting. I think most of Butch's merchandise models would have this towing arm move up and down, which I think is what towing arms do anyway. In fact, I've literally only just noticed. He has kind of these simulated hydraulic rams, so I'm guessing this would have moved up and down, but you know, this model doesn't. It all relies on this string. But to be honest, that's about it for Butch. There's look at the underside. You can see he's got the wooden chassis, the wooden chassis for the wheels, and how the plastic kind of integrates into it. The one thing though, the one little drawback that I will give to this Butch is in regards to the color. I'm not sure where it comes off on camera, but if you were to look at a picture of Butch, or if you're lucky enough to see one in person, the yellow is great. It's all, you know, it's a perfect shade of yellow, but everything else is the wrong shade. The all this blue on this model, it's teal, but Butch's model has dark blue coloring. And don't get me wrong, I really like how, you know, the yellow and the teal look. I think it looks really nice. They contrast one another really nicely. But, you know, I can't defend it. I can't call this a perfect model if the colors are off. So, as much as I do like, you know, the overall design, the overall shape of Butch, and the face, and the towing arm, and what have you, I do have to knock a couple of points off for the wrong color. And it's not like it's faded, you know, because for one thing, I rarely ever took my Wooden Railroad toys outside, so they wouldn't have got faded like that. But I think, you know, this is just how Butch comes, is in this teal color. So I do have to knock a few points off of that, but like I said, I do like this color combination regardless. In terms of the his learning curve and Thomas Wooden Railway counterparts, the original model, this Brio model is leaps and bounds ahead of his original model. I don't like that model at all. I'll give it credit, it's made mostly of wood, but like details like the wheel arches are made, they're like painted on the body, and the towing arm is interesting for the fact that it has a magnet, but I think it swivels around, and it's like a bipolar magnet, so you can connect things up either way, which is great, but you know, it's at a cost of the overall design of the model. The later model is fantastic, I'll give it that. It's one of my favourite looking Thomas Wooden Railway models out there. I don't know if it was made by Tomy or if it was first made by Fisher-Price Mattel. But that model is, you know, vastly superior. It does include a lot more plastic, which I know some people will call that a drawback, but I like it a lot more. I think it's one of the more perfect models that they've ever made, and it's easily one of the better upgrades to a previous model that they've done. So that's a look at Butch's model. Now, I mentioned at the start how he's an interesting character to have even been thought of to be made by Brio. And that's due to Butch's history from the TV series, because I just find his history so interesting. You know, how he was featured in the TV series. He was first introduced in season 5. So when you consider, you know, season 5, we've had 4 previous seasons, and when you think of all the different characters that have appeared and which ones that Brio made, you know, they made almost all of the season 1 cast minus Henrietta. They made, out of season 2, they made Diesel, Duck and Daisy, and I didn't mean to quote the Thomas anthem there, it just worked out like that. But they didn't make Boko, Bill, Ben, Donald, Douglas, Harold or Trevor. Season 3 they missed out Mavis and Bulgy. Season 4, we haven't looked at the season 4 narrow gauge engines yet. We've looked at Stepney and Bola, but we haven't looked at the narrow gauge engines yet, but we'll get to that soon. But they didn't make Rheneas or Smudger, nor did they make Caroline. So they skipped all these characters, and yet they come to season 5, and out of all of them, they make Butch. And I stand so surprised, just because of Butch's history, where he appeared in season 5. He introduced in Horrid Lorry, where he was named and literally appeared on screen, yet he appeared initially without a face. And then later in the same season, in Rusty and the Boulder, he appears again, facing towards the camera with a face. So he's the first character to appear first without a face, and then later with a face, but he's the only one to do so in the same season that he's introduced in. The other two are Henrietta and Big Mickey, but they initially didn't have a face and later did in later seasons. And Butch basically became, and I'm going to steal this title from, I think it's Thomas One Railway, he's the king of cameos. He appeared in so many episodes throughout the classic series, the new series. Just off in the background, you just see him whenever there's workmen or something. He appears like that. He appears away from the camera, facing away. He's just there. He's just used as set dressing most of the time, which is surprising to me. There is one shot in season 7, I think it's in Emily's New Coaches, where you see him facing towards the camera like this, or more. It's more like that, I think. And you just see him there with his face, and it must have been so confusing for children back then to see this character there with a face and not know anything about him, and look for episodes and watch the entire series and never see this character mentioned again or speak even. He never spoke. And it wasn't until season 15, which I'll digress for a minute and just say that is my second least favourite season of the whole series. But the one thing that it did right was it introduced Butch. It reintroduced Butch to the series. He got a proper major role. He spoke. And I remember the excitement of reading the description of the episode, where it said, I don't know off the top of my head, but it was, to paraphrase, it was something like Thomas helps Butch with, when he uses his magnet or what have you, uses his magnet to help others or what have you. And I remember everyone freaking out when they saw the name Butch, and sure enough, it was the very same Butch that appeared in the classic series, never spoke, was referred to name only once, and the time he did, never had a face, and just suddenly he's in the CGI series. He's one of the many surprise returnees for the CGI series. And ever since, he's made prominent appearances, especially since the introduction of the Sodor Search and Rescue Center. He's become a member of that. So to go from having appearing without a face, to gaining one, to not ever speaking, to becoming a major part of the series, it's quite incredible to me, to be honest. And that's where Butch, that's why I think he's such an interesting character, and why I think he's so strange that Brio made him at all. It's not like they based his model, it's not like they had a tow truck model like this, and they were just like, well, if we repaint this, we can make it Butch, and there we go, we got a new character. He's just completely out of nowhere. But all the same, I appreciate it. I think he is a great model, and I'm glad that he's part of the lineup. But I will always think it's strange that we get Butch of all characters, but not Donald, Douglas, Boko, Mavis, Bulgy, especially because there is actually a double-decker bus model by Brio. I don't know whether it was made before or after Bulgy was introduced, but they could have just repurposed that. The fact that they didn't just repurpose, the fact that they didn't have a model like this to repurpose into Butch is quite surprising to me. But there we are, that's my look at Butch. That's also my little character evaluation of him, my little character history of Butch from the TV series. I think he's one of the more interesting characters, and has one of the more interesting character histories. And yeah, I think he's just a great model and a great character too, now that he's a proper part of the cast. So thank you all very much for watching this video. As usual, let me know in the comments what you think of this Butch down below, and what you think of him as a character, of course. And I will see you all next week for the penultimate Brio Thomas and Friends discussion, at least for this batch. So thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you all then.